Some folks could leave. Hello, everyone. We're just waiting for folks to trickle in from the waiting room. Giving a couple of minutes for folks to resettle from wherever they're joining us. All right, it seems like the waiting room portion of folks has trickled in, and then people will join as they are able to. Hello, everyone. My name is Goran Santana. I am the Director Member Services person at the DGC, and I am very happy to welcome you all to this amazing chat with some amazing filmmakers about our short film award, Project Greenlight. Before we get started, I would like to express my gratitude and acknowledge that that the GCBC offices are located on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Musqueam people, and that without their support and community guidance, a lot of the work that we do would not be possible. Now I'm going to introduce our very wonderful moderator for tonight, Lucy Guest, who is our 2021 established Greenlight winner with her short film Been Better Actually, which you will all be able to screen as I will be passing along the links to Lucy's and also Asia's and another one of our fellow winners, Milo's shorts at the end of the panel, so you can all see what the end result of a bright Greenlight film can look like. But I will step back and let the filmmakers speak. Lucy, I'll pass it off to you.
Hi, everyone. Okay, so here we go. We're going to do this a little informally in that I'm going to just ask questions for everyone. And if everyone can see at the bottom of the screen, there's a Q&A, and you can type your questions if you have them. You can also raise your hand and join in video potentially at some point if you're feeling saucy. So here we go. Angie, I'm going to start. So first, let me introduce everyone that's here. Coral already introduced me. Our film with Sonova Goddesseth is our producer of the film Been Better Actually. So she's there on screen. She's also a producer of many, many things, and I'll let her fill you in on that. Thank you for joining us. Angie Nolan, who's won this year's emerging Greenlight winner. I can't wait to see your film. I know, are you in post right now? You are in post. Okay, great. And then we have Asia Youngman, who I saw your film last year, I believe. They screened it during the Greenlight panel. Was it last year or the year before? Anyway, it's absolutely beautiful. I think about it. I still think about it. It was so beautiful. And then your producer, Mike Johnston, who's for me in the bottom right corner. I don't know where he is for you guys. So I'm going to start asking some questions to everyone, and then we'll kind of go organically from there. And I'll start with Angie. You're an emerging director. And why was it important for you to apply for the DGCBC Greenlight Award?
Well, a few reasons. I mean, I've been a DGC member off and on for a very, very long time, since the 90s. working my way up from PA to AD and all that, but always wanted to make my own films and I've done a few shorts for sure, but I really want to full steam ahead on long form content. And I feel like I had some success with the Crazy Eights, but I just need a little bit more oomph, you know. And this story came to me so fast, and I've always wanted to apply the DGC thing and never really had anything that I felt would really work. And this year just sort of all came together, and it's just because it's my peers, it's my colleagues, and I just know like it's with the support and kind of oomph behind the DGC, I feel like it's a really good opportunity for a calling card short to help me sort of catapult into my long form content stuff that I really want to make.
It's incredible how a deadline can really push you creatively. You know,
Oh,
once
yeah.
you have a deadline, then it helps you so much with passion projects. I always say, you know, even for these, like, just apply. Just the process of applying is going to solidify your project, even for future projects.
Oh, yeah.
Asia, how was your experience? Why was it important to you at this stage of your career to make this beautiful film?
It's kind of similar to Angie. Like, I found myself in a place in my career where, you know, I come from a documentary background, but I really wanted to be working in scripted and specifically episodic. But I found that, you know, although I had done a short fiction project back in 2020 with Mike, you know, I find when you're trying to get hired onto projects, people are always looking for like exactly what the project is. So I had done like a short drama comedy, but I hadn't done like something that was more like drama focused, I guess you could say. And so I think I wanted to do something that was a bit more like serious. I wanted to really push myself and kind of do a project that was a little bit more, I don't know, I'm ambitious. It scared me a little bit more just because there's so many moving parts to it, which we can get into later. But yeah, it was a really daunting project. Like, it was really rewarding, and I'm very proud of kind of the outcome of it, but it was a huge challenge for me to really kind of take on something that large scale, even for a short film. So I think for me, it was really just kind of building on experience, kind of looking for a calling card short, similar to what Angie said, and, you know, in the hopes of kind of pursuing more longer form and also getting hired for episodic and various other scripted projects.
And thank you, Asia. And Mike, was the application, what was the most, like, how did Mike come about? Did you guys work before? How did your synergy, how was it born, if you will? And then also, was the application part challenging, and when did you get involved in the project and things like that?
Well, the story I like to tell is that, like Asia said, we had just finished a project called Hatha, which we did together, which was a short comedy drama, fairly, you know, small scale, fairly isolated. It went very well, and I think we wanted to try something else together.
Sorry, what was it called?
Hatha.
Hatha.
Hatha was the name of the film, yes. The story I like to tell is that Asia texted me one night and said, "You don't have to do it if you don't want to, but I'm writing a monster movie." And pretty much there, I don't remember what she said after that, because I was like, "I'm in. I don't care what it is. I'm in." Because I've always kind of wanted to do, you know, something like that. Like, you know, Jaws is one of my favorite films of all time. So as soon as she says monster movie, it really didn't matter what came after that. I was in. And then she mentioned that she was going to pitch it for the Greenlight competition. So I got involved. I guess I think, you know, Asia was starting to write the script and put together the pitch, and that's when I came on board. Tried to be helpful to putting together the pitch and orchestrating the script. But I guess it was kind of in the pitch was happening as I was kind of coming on board at the same time.
Okay, cool. And then Sonova, what were some of the bigger challenges during the application process that you found? And if you want to tell us a little bit about how you came about the project.
Wow. Well, what can I say? Well, Lucy texted me or emailed me similar things saying, "Hey, I've got a script I want to submit to this. Are you tentatively interested?" And I was like, "Yeah, maybe," in the way that we can do. And I probably speak for a lot of you know, creatives and producers and things. So many times you pitch stuff and put together proposals, but the chances of you actually winning are so slim. And so I was a bit like, okay, I've got some downtime. let's work this together. I love working with Lucy. Good, good times for us to like catch up, but also hone those skills, like she said, putting together budgets, pulling it all in, and basically practicing a pitch. So I think the biggest kind of challenges is we've done it quite a few times now. So we kind of know how to tick those boxes and things, and you never really can tell if you're going to make it through to the next round or things like that. So my advice is, just do it. Because as Lucy said, even if it wouldn't work for this one, maybe you don't know which one it is. And in all honesty, I knew we had so much competition. I thought our chances were, okay, like it's always good to go. But I speak for everyone. There were so many other great projects on that. I really wasn't sure if we'd make it through to the final round. So of course, I was thrilled when we did. But at the same time, I was like, oh, holy heck, we now actually have to make a film. And then that's when the biggest kind of thing came together, because we're like, whoa, scheduling wise, how is this gonna work? So it's kind of think about it, but don't overthink it. So, and I think really just do what you can, put it forward. And I think even the bits that they're not quite sure on, like the judges, or they're very good at coming back to you and saying, hey, this didn't quite make sense. Can you just clarify it, revise it, and things? And the budget, for example, is a big one. It's really a guesstimate, roughly that you can do it, but honestly, don't overthink, getting those numbers exactly right. It gets revised so many times. There's so many factors in play. So just be realistic that if you're going to have massive loads of visual effects, that might not get you through because you're not going to have the money to do it. So yeah, that would be my kind of thoughts on that.
And that's just to segue into I think everyone on this panel and this webinar is aware of the process of winning the Greenlight Award. First, you put in your application, which is very detailed. It goes through, I can't exactly remember all the details of it, but you have a log line and your pitch deck, and you have your script, and you have your 1 page and your mood boards, and it's a budget, which Sonova, like your AD will give you a break. I think you actually have to also have your shooting schedule. I think you have, yeah. So it's pretty incredible, the application process, but it, like Sonova said, it can pay it forward to when you want to do this. It's nothing's like, if anything, it just hones everything into one area and gets you moving on it. But more on that, I just wanted to ask everyone else here, moving forward, once you had your application process in, or during the application process, what part of that was the hardest of putting together all those elements? Anybody want to take that?
I can, because it's so very recent for me. Can you hear me? Can everyone hear me okay? Yeah, for me, so my idea, it was crunch for us, because my idea was a story that I had written for a publication for Halloween. And a few people, I sort of said, this might be a cool short film. And then my friend Krista Mills, who ended up being my producer, thankfully came on at that time and said, well, let's do it. And the deadline was crunching. So I had to change that short story into a script in a very short period of time. And luckily she's very good at what she does and rallied all like that paperwork that you're saying, all the budgets, all that. I built the AD schedule, all that kind of stuff, but then got all the creative, and we worked together. I want to say for like 5 long days to get it to where it was. And we were just like, there was a few times where we were like, are we really doing this? Is this silly to do this? But I felt so strongly about the story. It had come to me in such a weird and quick and strange way that I was like, okay, I have to just follow that. And so we just rallied. But I would have liked, like, I found that super challenging to do, and it would have been nice to give yourself more time. I know we think about these things, like these kind of applications, and somehow it always ends up getting pushed closer to the line. And then for some reason, we're just like crunch time. So it's like, if you have a project or something that really speaks to you, and you can get somebody on board early and just take the time to plan it out a bit more, that would be my advice, because I did find that a bit harrowing.
I will say, watching, and you did such a great job putting your presentation together and watching. I didn't see Asia yours, but I did see Angie, you pitch yours live. It was just incredible to see everyone putting their pitch packages together and pitching. It's just very clear when somebody has a clear vision of their story, and you can see the story through just, you know, the visuals and the way that the director is talking about the story. And so it was really nice what you put together. And I think if any tips for people applying is just know your story really, really well. And it really helps, because the judges will ask you some hard-hitting questions, and they're going to dig into any weak link. They can smell it, and just be prepared for those kind of answers. Every project has that sort of, like, you could tell the judges were like, yes, but how are you going to achieve this? So practice with a friend, have a friend ask you the hard-hitting questions. Snova and I practiced on Zoom. Like, I would pitch to her. She had like I think, did you have a stopwatch?
Yeah, I was actually going to say exactly that. I kind of forgotten. I was like, oh, it was a breeze, but it really wasn't. Like, so Lucy obviously knew exactly what she was pitching and things, and that's half the battle, you know. But for me as well, just nailing down all of that, she practiced it so I could ask her questions if I didn't quite understand it. I think she pitched to people or practiced with people who had no idea what it was about, so she could be concise. And what we also discovered from that, do you remember, Lucy, when we brought up the images, like in a Word document or something, it was just glitching all over the place. And that, again, caused us a bit of chaos trying to, you know, finesse that. So definitely allow yourself a bit of time to, you know, work on those technical aspects as well, because that was quite stressful, wasn't it? Because we made last minute changes, and then to get it up there was interesting, to say the least.
That's a great point. Absolutely. Whether you're pitching live or if it's on Zoom, again, just know your tech. Get the tech down, because that's the last thing you want to be worried or thinking about. And it's the thing that always, like, I've seen it throw people off, because all of a sudden their presentation isn't working, and you can tell that they're just thinking about that the whole time, and they're not present with their beautiful story that they want to tell. And one other thing is, when you do win the award, or you're your finalist, there's 5, they pick 5, right? You do a practice pitch, and so you have time to prepare, but it's not that I didn't take it too seriously, but I thought, oh, I'll have time to actually hone it in. It was recorded, and I cried the whole time. It's really embarrassing, but it was like this story about a breakup, and I was like, and then they never find, and I was like, I don't know why now I'm crying about this story, but it was pretty like, okay, I'm glad I got that out in a safe space, so that live, I'm not going to be so emotional about the story, that I can just tell the story, and you have a lot to say in 5 minutes. So that's another thing. Asia, anything that you want to talk about as far as biggest challenges during any, like, the pitching or the application, or if you guys want to move forward to how was it during production, like, you know, feel free to take any of those questions.
Sure. I mean, the application was fairly straightforward from what I remember. It was kind of a funny time, because I was on vacation with my parents, like, for Christmas, and I was like in Whistler, and I think I was like starting to work on the script, and I was texting Mike during that time. And then I guess we pitched, like, I think it was January of 2021, I believe. I think that was the timeline, but I remember being fairly straightforward, except maybe it was like a little bit rushed, just because by the time I learned about the Greenlight initiative, I was kind of like, oh, I only have a few weeks to do this. It's over the holidays, but we managed to kind of throw it all together last minute, which was great. And then I think the pitching process, like, once again, it was fairly straightforward. It was really helpful to have that practice pitch, like you were talking about, Lucy, where, you know, you're with everyone who is shortlisted, you all get a pitch to one another, which is like slightly intimidating, but it's great because everyone gives you, you know, really helpful feedback, and you just kind of get used to talking about your project in the way that you would. And I found that really, really informative and helpful just moving forward. And then it was just a matter of like really honing in on what the pitch was, just practicing as much as possible. Like I'd write down cue cards, and I got to the point where I was memorizing it and just like wandering around my apartment, just like rehearsing it constantly. And I sort of did a similar thing with Mike, where I was like, can we hop on a Zoom and, can I just kind of run through it with you and just get some feedback? And I got some help from a friend of mine who's an actor, and she also gave me some really great feedback. So I think just going through that process was really great. And then we kind of lucked out in a way because it was 2021. Yeah. So we didn't have like a live pitch. I'm not sure how things are going now at the program, if they're like ever in person now. But I think just being able to pitch like on Zoom was kind of nice, just because you essentially have your script like on screen, and not to say that you should be reading off of it, because I think it does have to come from the heart. But it does help, right? And I think it kind of gave me a little bit of extra confidence just going into that as well, knowing that I could reference something if I just completely blanked on what I was talking about. So it was a mixture of like, so much excitement, but also like, oh, now we actually have to make this. And so Mike and I were, we were like, we have to dive in right away. And I think as soon as we found out, we were just basically going into prep at that point. I don't know what you want to add to that, Mike, if there's anything.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty much, like when we found out, it was pretty much full steam ahead, because we really didn't have much time, especially it being a summer movie. We really had to film it in like June or July, and it was probably, I want to say, late January, early February when we found out. So we really had no choice but to jump right into it. And I mean, kind of going back to the challenges of the application, I think from my end, the biggest challenge was the budget, not so much in putting it together, but just knowing that we did not have enough money to make the movie. So kind of, taking that big swing on, okay, yes, if we are successful, here's what we're going to use this money for, but keep in mind, we're going to go out and raise more financing for, which was, a bit of a gamble, certainly, and a big swing, but it did pay off, and we did go out and obviously raise that money to get to a more manageable budget level.
Because you guys had a big VisFX, and you traveled for your movie as well. So you took a unit to Kelowna, is that right?
That's good. Yes, we were shooting in Peachland. We had actors traveling in from out of the province. We had the COVID protocols associated with that. Shooting with kids, stunts, effects at night, and pretty much everything they tell you not to do, we did. The only thing that would have made it more difficult is if there was like a horse or something,
Right.
And to add into all this, we shot during the heat dome.
Okay.
So when it was like 40 plus degrees or what have you. So there was no shortage of challenges associated with the production, but I think you see it in the final product. It all really came together. So
Really, really did. I have a question here in the Q&A, and it's from Alexander, and he's saying, could you have examples of hard-hitting questions that a panel judge might ask? Sonova, do you remember any hard-hitting questions that got thrown our way, or any of the projects?
I think it was more, at the time, it was just kind of more on the spot about the budget. And again, as Mike said, it's like, oh, more money is always better. And I think everyone is just like, we would like to create this, but maybe we'll end up creating that. So for me as well, just knowing that I had the numbers in front of me, I think there was a few different questions. Our original script and our final film had quite a few different locations in. So just being kind of aware that there was additional costs with that. Unfortunately, like I think if you have a fairly experienced producer attached, they'll kind of understand, what it takes to do those different things. So it didn't necessarily throw me, but I knew it was a very kind of relevant question from the panel, but I was confident that we would be able to, complete it as we planned. I had no interest in kind of pitching something that I knew that we couldn't achieve. So, yeah.
Yeah. Angie, what were your hard questions from the panelists? Because they don't go easy.
No, not at all. It's that, to me, was the most harrowing part, actually, is because in our version, we were sitting right there on the stage in front of them. and basically had showrunner, writer, actor, creative, and producer, straight up producer, EP type, and just asking all the hard-hitting questions. And they really like know your script inside and out, know your character's story arcs, where they're going and why, like, and why it's feasible to hit all those points and arcs in a 15-minute short film within your budget. Also, because I had VFX, if you have VFX or any kind of special effects, it's just knowing, really having an understanding of what that looks like in your time constraints, and understanding what, if you have to lose something, what could it be, you know, and not being afraid to sort of kill your darlings in the moment, even before you've even shot an ounce of your thing, just in that moment for the pitch, that I mean, or just having a really broad understanding of what VFX are important, what can be done in practical effects, like just sort of, because a lot of those questions, especially if your film's really dealt with that kind of stuff, I found that they were asking a lot of those questions because we all know, like, budget wise, those are the things that really, and a few locations and stuff, but I would say really knowing your script and your characters and everything inside and out, and being sort of malleable in the moment too. If somebody has a question for you, not being so stuck, maybe just sort of considering what they're asking you or suggesting, and seeing and trying in the moment through all your nerves to try and figure out, okay, yeah, sure, I could maybe do this. So I'd say, yeah, just sort of being malleable in the moment too really helps.
That's good advice. Chris wrote, can you give an example on how the cash prize money was used, and what in-kind services were covered? Mike, do you want to start off with this budget question?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, trying to think back now to 2 years ago on what we exactly used all the money on, but I mean, the big one, you know, in terms of the in-kind services for us was actually visual effects. You know, we were very lucky to partner with DNEG, who did the visual effects for the film, largely in part to a relationship that Asia had with them. So they were incredible. I mean, you know, to be able to work with them, and for them to be able to create our monster friend in the movie was awesome. That was the big one. And then you know, William F. White's and Kessler Camera also came on in an in-kind services capacity. So they were huge partners to us. So for the most part, like a lot of equipment and things and vendors were covered through the in-kind services. And then, you know, looking at what we actually used the cash for, you know, a big chunk of it was, you know, transportation and accommodations, because we were a road show. We were shooting up in Peachland, so there wasn't a lot of crew that we could access there, so we had to bring a large number of our crew up. And then of course our cast as well had to be properly transported and accommodated, and some of them were coming in from out of the province as well. So that was really a large chunk of the cash really did go towards kind of those logistical pieces. And then of course, you know, food and all that stuff to keep people happy.
Snova, did you want to add anything to that, or should I move?
I can do it super quick. I was actually looking for the list because we had so many people who really helped us out. Like first and like foremost, the way that we set it up, all the cast and crew, we just paid them a flat rate honorarium, like across the board. So a large chunk went that way. So whether it was the DOP or a PA, they earned the same like daily rate. It was more of a token payment, but we thought that was kind of the fairest way to show appreciation. And of course, many people were like, put it back in the pot, I don't even need it, which was of course incredibly gracious of them. But in terms of what we actually spent the money on, I think some of it was like location fees. And for example, we had a City of Vancouver liaison. They gave us an amazing rate, but we still had to pay. That's the way that it was set up. A couple of permits, again, we had to pay for. Very much we also paid for food for everyone. And as you said, transport, gas, we're making sure no one was out of pocket in any way. We did get a lot of food donated, which was amazing. And then everything, it was just all those little things that you don't think about, is just things like hard drives and stuff like that. That really kind of, remember to keep money in your contingency for that. We ended up buying a bunch more, and suddenly that's one of our biggest sections at like, you know, $400 or $500 type thing. But we also had a lot of in-kind from post-production houses, which was amazing. Also, some of the location rental companies, they provided us with kits, which was super kind of them. And there's probably loads more I'm forgetting, but
Well, I
again,
can look through the list while we're on this too.
yeah, but it was just very, there was a lot of generosity, and I suggest, you know, just kind of asking, but really so much comes through the crew that you ask. So our DOP was amazing. He did, he worked brilliantly alongside Whites and some of the other camera companies. And then, yeah, and then of course they gave us just outstanding deals. So really think well about, you know, people who are you're working with, because they bring, you know, huge amounts to the, you know, to the project. And like our costume designer got us great costume rental rates, and like everyone kind of participated. And don't be afraid to ask your crew like what they can bring to the table, because sometimes they might not even think it, but then they're like, oh, actually, I know someone who can provide X, Y, Z. So
Just even Sim Camera, right? They gave us a deal on Live or something because they were helping us with the film, helping Ryan, and yeah, all that stuff. Okay, I kind of want to move on a little bit to the challenges during production, because I know that it's a big one. And I know that we've all, I would say, just looking back, one thing that I know that Sonova and I had to do is we pushed this project 3 times. And by the time we ended up shooting, it was the same weekend as Run and Gun, which was totally an oversight. Did not know it was doing that same weekend. So it was very hard to find crew. But I think if I were to do anything different, because that's one of the questions on here, I would be that not to push so many times. If it just at that point, you know, recast or something. Like we had a lot of different cast availabilities that were constantly juggling, and just key crew that we kept juggling. And then all of a sudden it felt like we prepped this film 3 times, and it's almost like we did the work 3 times. And then by the time we finally went to camera, everyone was working on other projects. So it was the busiest time of year. So I would say start your project, start it right away, because give yourself a ton of time in post-production as well, because that takes a lot more time. Even though, like Sonova said, we got a lot of services in kind, vaudeville came in, and everyone was there to help. But it's just when you're working on somebody else's, you know, reduced rate or working for next to nothing, you have to do it around their schedule. So, you know, and also it's not great to say, hey, I need this by tomorrow kind of thing. And our post ended up getting quite rushed because we pushed so much. So that's a big thing I would totally do in future, is leave a lot of time for post, because it's a big part of the movie. And that was a big thing that I would do differently. I don't know if you agree, Sonova, but I'm sure you do. Okay, Asia, your pitch, you already had all the island. This is Andy Wong saying he remembers your pitch. He said everything was lined up, including water safety. Oh, how did you approach getting crew members on board? And how much of your crew did you secure before you getting the funding?
Yeah, I'm glad Andy asked this, because it kind of goes back to like the hard-hitting questions. Like during our pitch, I knew this would be a big question from the judges. And I can't remember how I knew that. Like it might have been something that was brought up during our practice pitch. But I knew that I had to have like a solid answer for that. So I think when I had done the practice pitch and that was flagged by, I can't remember who it was, I went to Mike and I was like, you know, we should kind of make sure we have a game plan for how we're going to approach all the water work, because of course we shot on the Okanagan Lake. There's some underwater scenes. And we found Crosby Marine Services. I'm not sure how we kind of came across them, but of course they're kind of like the go-to, I think, in the Vancouver area when it comes to any sort of water work. But of course, they usually work on like much larger scale productions. So I think we just sent them an email and we explained, you know, we're applying for this DGC BC Greenlight program. This is the project. Here's the script. We always made sure to send the script just because, of course, we wanted to make sure that people who came on board to support, resonated with the story and kind of the creatives behind the project. So I think we just kind of started a dialogue with them, and we hopped on the phone with Jason, I believe, Mike, and we just kind of talked through this is sort of the scene in the script, like what is the best way to approach this? And just kind of talk through some of the logistics of doing that type of water work. So when I went into the pitch, I had a very kind of clear answer for them. And we're like, we're in talks with Crosby Marine Services. And they're like, oh, that's amazing. We know them so well. They're great. So I think that really kind of eased any sort of concerns on their end about the logistics and technicalities of that. So really it was just kind of reaching out to people, explaining what the program is, saying that we're looking for support in these areas. We'd love to collaborate with folks, and just seeing kind of who was interested was really the process that we went through. I think we also had our cinematographer, Alfonso Chin, attached. And a big reason that I wanted to work with Alfonso was, well, a variety of reasons. He's incredibly talented, but also he has experience working with VFX and also shooting on the water. So that was another kind of plus for us, I think, just going into doing a project this ambitious. I'm not sure if we had anyone else attached at the time. I know we were in talks with a couple of VFX companies, including DNEG. A big reason that we kind of got them on board is I used to work as a visual effects artist before I did writing and directing. So I actually worked at DNEG for 9 months, and just on a whim was I don't know if you'd ever support something like this. And luckily they were really excited about the concept and came on board. And I just honestly don't think the project would look the way it looks had they not come on. And I think we would have just had to get a puppet or or just completely cut out seeing any sort of creature. So we were just very lucky. I think we just had a lot of amazing support from various folks, and Keslo was on board, and William F. White. So it really kind of was a community effort, I think, and we just were really fortunate to have some amazing crew members involved.
And going back to the question about what did we spend the cash on, Crosby Marine Services. So
yeah, I was gonna add into that.
I missed that one for some reason. But that was also one of those, like Asia was saying, we knew from the get-go, we don't know how to shoot on the water. We can't do this guerrilla or super indie style. This has to be done properly. So we need to make sure we have, the best people in mind. And honestly, I think we found them by just Googling marine film work or something like that. And they are the top people working in the province. So they were a huge asset to us.
You're muted.
Oh.
Okay, great. Last question, Asia, how do you pronounce the name of your film? That's from Chris as well.
Oh yeah. So it's pronounced Nahaha Itku. So the X's are kind of like an H sound, and it translates to the sacred spirit of the lake.
Cool. Also, okay, great. So I want to move more also into some of the biggest challenges that people felt that experienced during production, shooting, or during post-production. Anything big surprises, any advice you'd give any of the teams that are applying, things that you would do differently if you were to do it again? And then Mike and Sonova, you can add that from a budgetary perspective, and also just some, executive producing perspective, what we do differently. That usually is sometimes my biggest lessons come from what I would not do again. You learn the hardest lessons of those ones, and they stick with you. So
if I could predict a heat dome, I wouldn't shoot in a heat dome. I wouldn't do that again. No, I'm just kidding. But everything on this movie was fairly hard, just because there was a lot of moving pieces just between working with kids. You have shorter hours, as we all know, working on the water, visual effects. We had 5 shooting days, which seemed to be quite a surplus. Even for short films I've done in the past, I've never had five shooting days. But considering the last 2 days were just water work, basically, with shooting at night with kids, out on the water, visual effects, they became much larger days as a result. So I mean, I think if I learned anything differently, it would be nice to have more time. But it's, it's always those two things that we want more of, but we never have, right? Is money and time. So, I think we stretched our resources very far, given the circumstances, given the small crew that we had, given the unique environmental challenge that we had at the time. We did quite a lot, but I think, if I learned anything from it, it's that water work is a monster, no pun intended, and it needs more time. So I think that was the big sort of takeaway for me. But nothing was particularly easy. There was one time a universe where we wanted to shoot the film on film, like on 16mm film, and that was, we talk about killing our darlings. That was the darling that had to die. I kind of had to take Asia aside and be like, I'm sorry, but this has got to go. There's just no, and looking back on it now, there's no way we would have finished the movie if we shot on films. So, that was also a big takeaway, but also it was one of those things that we had to, as we got closer to production, we just had to be realistic and say, this is not going to work for what we have. So that was a big takeaway as well.
And Angie, did you want to add anything to any advice, what you do differently? Any sort of like big...
I would probably schedule more time if you could. It depends on your film and the budget that you have. We only shot in 3 days. I feel like the scope of our film was it's only one location, so we were lucky in that. But the location is such a character in the film that finding the location was the hardest. And then when we found it, our producer having to negotiate like crazy to get it. And I know that took a chunk out of our budget. Plus it was on Bowen Island, so we had to put everyone up there as well. So, and feed everyone and all that, which is the good thing for us was just, I mean, I hate to say it, but the beginning of the strikes and stuff like that, everything was people were so readily available to us. We had long scheduled we picked a weekend, and that was going to be our weekend. And because we knew we really wanted the location, I feel like sometimes you just, like you were saying earlier, Lucy, like just going with what you got, like make a decision, and then whoever jumps on. And of course we were stressed a little bit. Are we going to get everyone? Are we going to get everything we need? And somehow it just sort of all came together, even though our Saturday night that we were filming a huge bonfire scene by the water was the Crazy Eights gala screening. So we had to work around some people's schedules around that for sure. Right. But people still said yes, still showed up. And for us also, weather, we got hit. It's hard when you only have 3 days and you don't have a weather cover day or anything like that. It's just not in the budget. If you're shooting a lot outdoors, I would say if you could find it in to have a weather cover day or something. I know it's hard within this budget, but we had to, a storm came in and we had to stop for a chunk of time, which meant when I was filming one of the end scenes, I had to right in the minute Kill Your Darlings, completely change the ending of my film, completely change it on the fly, which is so hard to do. It's such an emotional thing, but I don't really have any regrets. I feel like it was such a beautiful shooting experience. I think because people just showed up and said yes. People I didn't even know showed up and came to be grips and electrics and camera people, and and I was just like, hi, I'm meeting you for the first time and you're coming to make my film. You're donating 3 days of your time on the island, it's like we put them up and we fed them and that, but I just thought, wow, that's such an incredible, that's what's incredible about these kind of things sometimes. Some of us work on bigger things and you forget sort of the heart of it, and I feel like that part was such a joy. But I would say if you can definitely attach a producer right away. I feel like even before you apply. And then I said the soonest that you can get a first AD and a locations manager, I think people to commit to that, I think would be super helpful. Yeah, because we had a first AD right away too, and I think that helped us a lot. And then just putting your keys together as soon as possible. As soon as you get the prize, we just started going down that road. We picked a date and started going down that road. And I think that really helped us in the end.
Yeah. Sonova, anything to add from your end?
Just exactly that. The scheduling is so difficult. And I probably speak to you as well. We shot 4 days, was it? and then a couple of other little bits here and there. But I think the most crushing thing was at the end, some of it didn't even make the cut because we shot so much. And then I'm like kicking myself because I'm like, hey, should I have said, let's do 3 days, and got Lucy to really streamline it and then have less in post, but then she would have had less to play around with. But I think that's always kind of the devil's advocate on that. Our scheduling was so hard because we had to do it over 2 different weekends. The locations weren't available when we needed them. So many of our keys were working on other projects at the time. So it was really hard to get everyone in the same room to even discuss things. So it was really kind of fluid. So it was good that we had so many experienced people, but also because they were working on other shows, some of them were very much like, hey, this has to take priority as my paid job, but I'm with you from like, I can do this on the weekend for you. But with us, some of us were prepping during the week because we were doing other things. And so that really made it difficult. And just going back to what Lucy says about the post period too, when we started, we were like, oh, we've actually got tons of time. And then we just didn't. And of course, Lucy being fabulous, she landed, a directing project, which overlapped entirely our post and edit. So as she was saying, so many people kindly lent us their services, but they were like, oh, can you stay till, can you come in before 6 p.m? And Lucy's like, I'm in prep for my other show. I can't get there till the evening. And then of course you're having to kind of persuade these people who've already given you services for free to stay late so you can do it. And it was just entirely stressful because we ran out of time. And I think there's lots of things that Lucy and I would take with that. Things like our first choice editor at the time, they weren't available till later. So that put us back a month, and then it didn't quite pan out as it was meant to. And then we were so far behind. We should have just kind of bitten the bullet and found someone else. But I think go with your instinct too, and just keep an eye on the timing and everything. And that's kind of the biggest thing, time.
And unfortunately, we had a technical, so we lost sound for 3/4 of our first day. So we kind of reinvented the edit in the edit, which took more time to reinvent. We rewrote the movie in the edit, actually. Like Snova was saying, we didn't have time really to do that. So
But I would just add as well, I mean, but this is what's so amazing about programs like this. This is how you kind of really learn those skills. And then, we still created something we were proud of. And of course, everyone knows the limitations and the restrictions, and you just kind of learn to work around it. And Lucy and I have learned so much, like for the next one, because we know there's things that we should have addressed, differently. So I would say to anyone kind of who's doing this for one of the first times, don't ever be scared to ask people how they've done it and things like that, because you learn so much things that you would never, anticipate.
So true. And sometimes mistakes are like the best thing that could happen to your film. It's interesting when you roll with it. Somebody said here, what's the most appropriate genre for this kind of program? When I applied, I think they were saying any genre, anything that speaks to you. I think the most important thing is that the project that you're applying for really speaks to you, because it's going to take up a lot of your time and a lot of by the end, you're never going to want to ask a favor from anyone ever, because you're going to feel like you've ran out of favors for your life. But you're going to do whatever genre is that you're passionate about, because people will jump on to whatever passion you bring to it. I think that's what's most important. And your voice. Basically, this is a great opportunity for you to put your voice forward, and whatever that is. Somebody asked, Joel, the road show, did you cover gas, hotel, and per diem? How much did it add to your budget? Shooting road shows versus at Bunsen instead, for example.
I can speak to that just for our film. I mean, that was really, like, when we talk about what did the majority of the cash budget go towards, it was, it was the labor. We did the same thing. We did sort of just a standard kind of honorarium across the board because we couldn't, you know, afford the day rates of each individual department. But gas, accommodations, meals, all of that was covered. So like what was mentioned here for the other films, nobody was going out of pocket. But it was really like, you know, I'm trying to think back now, but that was really, you know, the biggest chunk of what that cash went towards. And then like we've kind of talked about here as a group is like, luckily we had a lot of great partners and vendors who came on board for things like equipment, and you know, we were able to negotiate good rates for the locations and things like that. So it was really, yeah, like getting our people there, getting our cast there, and making sure everybody was comfortable while we were there was the majority of our cash budget. And Crosby Marine.
Big plug for them. Yeah, I think Sonova has a spreadsheet somewhere where it's like the services in kind, like the thank yous at the end of the movie are almost as long as the movie. Really could not have done the movie without it. So this
I remember
really
our
like
special thanks. Our
Yeah,
special thanks section is very long. Yeah.
it's really incredible. We have an amazing community here. So last sort of round of questioning, I think, and feel free again, anyone jump in who's watching this. It's weird that we can't see who's here, but feel free to ask anything at any point. But moving forward after post and everything's done with the film, how has the film festival application process been for everyone? Any big takeaways there? I know, Angie, are you in post or are you done?
We are in post, but I've already started flagging and budgeting for the festivals that I want to apply to once we've handed it in. For sure.
Okay.
I have a definite strategy for sure.
You do have a strategy.
This
Okay,
film,
so
yeah.
I know, Asia, your film got into TIFF. Huge congratulations. Do you want to talk to us about your strategy for the film festival circuit?
Sure. I can't remember when Mike and I had the conversation about festivals, but I think when you're making any sort of project, you're always kind of thinking with that in mind in terms of deliverables and, you know, the festivals that you want to target. I think because I had a bit of a relationship already with TIFF, just by having another short in the festival back in 2019, and then also participating in their filmmaker lab and one of their talent accelerator programs in 2020. I just think that really helped, like always having like a contact or a direct relationship with a festival programmer is always a huge benefit, because you can just kind of email them directly, send them a link as opposed to going through the process of like doing the general application. So I think that really helped with just getting it on their radar earlier on. I think having like a star like Gowan Dio, you know, attached to the project also was a huge benefit because of course she was in Beans, which was Tracy Deer's project, which premiered back in 2020, I think. Must have been 2020. So that was also, I think, a huge plus and appeal for the festival as well. And yeah, we were just really excited when we did get in. You know, it's always like when you're applying for festivals, you never really know if it's going to suit the program, if the link's going to be right. There's so many factors that are considered when you're applying for any film festival, but it was always a dream for us to be at TIFF, and it was certainly worth the wait because I think we finished the project in December of 2021, and we kind of just like held off throughout 2022, I guess, really until we heard about TIFF, and that happened, I think, in like August. It was like July or August of 2022. Yeah, so it was really exciting just for us to be able to celebrate the film with like the cast and crew in Toronto. And we've been screening the film at like various festivals since. It's sort of like at the end of its festival run, I would say. Like it's currently on CBC Gem. We're screening at another festival this fall, and I think that's going to be kind of like the last one for us. So we're at the end of it at this stage, but it's been a really nice opportunity just to go through the festival circuit with it, and now finally have it on a platform like CBC Gem where it's more accessible to folks. I don't know if you want to add anything to that as well, Mike, just about the festivals.
No, I think, I mean, yeah, I think you covered the gambit pretty well, but yeah, I think we knew TIFF, we wanted TIFF to be kind of the launch pad for the film. So we did make that decision to kind of hold off on the film for several months in hopes that it would have that TIFF landing spot. And like Asia said, I think, you know, kind of all of the elements that we had kind of together between the cast and I think the commercial viability of the project was also very, very good for us. And yeah, like it was a gamble that paid off, and we've had a very, very successful festival run, I think, as far as we can be concerned over the last year. And it's nice to be winding it down and then finishing it up this fall. Oh, I think you're muted.
Awesome. I'll do that one more time before this is over. Sonova, anything you want to add as far as, so Sonova and I have, this is our second short that we've put through the festival circuit. Anything you want to add sort of about the film festival circuit in general, or like just
Yeah, it really, just as Asia says, you never really know where it's gonna land. There's some that we've entered previously, and we're like, okay, we tick all the boxes, we're gonna get in there, and it's like a big fat nothing. And then we entered some bigger ones, and we won a cash prize for our last short for like Best in Fest, and we were just kind of blown away. That wasn't even really on our radar. Again, like, because we'd sunk so much time and money into the Greenlight in production, we did have a tiny little bit left over in our budget that we assigned to some of our film festivals, and a couple of the crew who were like, hey, I don't need my few $100s for the day. That went straight back into the film for film festival submission. But so it's definitely something to keep in the back of your mind, that is a big additional cost. And I think when you've been putting out so much of your heart and soul, it's almost hard to then find more funds and time to contribute to those. But again, it's really Lucy's done an excellent job in kind of figuring out which ones to hit. And again, it's almost like, as Asia said, I mean, congratulations on TIFF. Like, you're waiting to then submit to others, or that makes you not relevant to others. And there was a couple that on our last film specifically, it then got shown before we'd even realized that it had won other sections, and then it made it invalid for that. And there was just a couple of scenarios like that. We were like, oh no, like, so it's a really tough, a tough thing, like the timing and the schedule. So definitely, review all the ones that you might want to enter and that you want to prioritize, because there's nothing worse than making it. I think we got into one in Toronto, like a Just for Laughs or something, and then they said, we want to feature you, and then they're like, has it been on the internet? Yes. And we're like, yes. And they're like, okay, sorry, you can't do it then. And so that, that was a little bit upsetting. So just totally make a plan for your film festival run and how you want to approach it, and also think of outside ones. I was on Air Canada the other day, and I saw so many great shorts from BC that they've got into the Air Canada program and stuff, and I think there's lots of opportunities there as well once the festivals are done. So
that was great, Snova. And also just to add, Snova and I went to a couple of really fun ones. We went to Portland. Like this, after you do your first wish list of the bigger fests, there's a lot of really great, like, specific genre specific festivals. So we were comedies, we were submitting to a lot of comedy festivals, and some of them surprised us. Like, we had a great time in Portland, and we met a lot of filmmakers that I'm still kind of, a couple of them still friends with on Instagram, and you keep track, and years later, it's a fun community. I highly recommend, like Sonova was saying, in Asia, and Mike, save money for the film festival process if you can, because it's kind of pricey to apply. And I'm sure, Angie, that's your plan. If you want to enlighten us on anything else, or if there's anything else that we missed that you want to add, go for it.
Well, it's good because I also worked for the Whistler Film Festival for 15 years, so I know
Right.
I know the process very well.
Right. Anything you want to enlighten us on? Like,
I think you really hit the nail on the head, like knowing your genre for sure. And I think that you always have the dream of applying to the bigger festivals, but I think, and some of them will take certain genres for sure. So if you feel like it's a really rich genre short, that is something special about it, definitely apply to the bigger ones. But as you were saying, like, don't don't forget about the smaller ones that are genre specific, where you could be the winner. You could take home the big prize in the smaller, really cool festivals, you know? And I feel like don't disregard that. I feel like you should have your top tier, but then you should have I have tiers of festivals for sure. I have a whole spreadsheet thing, and I feel like it's a good idea to do, like, and really study and research specific film festivals and who goes to them, and who, you know, where your short film can live after a festival run, or what home you can find at a certain festival. So just understanding how certain festivals celebrate shorts and how they help promote you, and that, just sort of understanding that is really great, and building yourself a spreadsheet long before the film is even finished.
Or find yourself a producer like Sonova who has all the spreadsheets and all the good docs. Everything's very
Yeah,
organized.
I should say my producer Krista is amazing. So I'm very, 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 very lucky. This film would not be made without her. Get a good producer.
Get a good producer. Poor Sonova. I was like, I don't know if I can come to her with another short film ever, because it's so much work for the producer. Truly, you are so lucky if you find a good producer. Just the amount of just paying people, like all the bank, like you have to open a bank account, all the little bank account transfers that were going out, like that, you know, just keeping a track of everything, and then doing the paperwork at the end. It's a lot of work. So you need a good producer, that's for sure, who's organized and can take care of all of that, so that people are paid really quickly and things like that, especially if they're doing you a favor. One last question here. Greenlight. So Helena is asking about the mood boards. She said, is that part of your application, or was that for the pitch? For both, actually. So for the application, we had mood boards, and then I remade the mood boards for the pitch to be specifically to go along with, like, because like everyone was saying here, you practice your pitch. It's almost like you come up with this 5-minute monologue, and then the photos, the mood board was more sort of like, you know, worked with all the things I was saying. But the original mood board was, you know, showed tone and story, characters, everything visual, all the visual components, the color palette, sort of like, story wise, how we were going to show certain parts of it. It was like a lot of visuals to just sort of like support the text, basically the story. That I'm sure. Does anybody want to add anything? I hope that answers your question. Anyone want to add to that? Sonova, is that kind of what was in there?
Yeah, I would totally say that. I mean, I think you worked very hard on the first mood board, because you had it all in your mind. And again, like kind of when I came on board, it was more just like, oh, I'm looking at this mood board, but this isn't quite clear to me coming from an outside perspective. So we definitely tightened things up there. And also, once we'd got through that initial stage, like Lucy said, we had everything there for the pitch, but we just, again, fine-tuned it. We were very Lucy was very clear in the music soundtrack that she wanted. So we had like the sound attached and things like that, and music playing in our pitch and things. And that really added to it as a whole as well. But again, just get fresh eyes on it. Because again, like with any pitch or proposal, even someone who doesn't necessarily understand pitching for a film, they should be able to review it and understand it. So
that's good advice. And it says, can you have members on your team not from BC? Ooh, Coral, do you know, I'm not too sure actually. Coral, do you know if, I'm sure actually there's I think she put in here the application guidelines, and in there should be, there's hopefully the answer to that. I can't remember specifically off the top of my head. Do you know?
Yes, your members can be non-BC residents. They do have to be Canadian, Canadian citizens, permanent residents, or refugees, but they can be non-BC residents. What's important is that the director, the person taking the position of the director, is a DGC member in good standing.
And I think there's just a follow-up question. Just to clarify, can your producer also not be a BC resident? Do we know? It's just the director, right? That has to be a BC resident?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
But just to add from that, what one of the stipulations was we had to have WorkSafe BC coverage. So just keep that in mind. I think if you're having crew from outside province, you may want to look into additional insurance and stuff, so that's covered. That would be my only comment, because we didn't have any crew from outside of BC, did we? I don't think.
Yeah, I don't know, we didn't. There's a question here, start to finish, how much time from winning the contest to the final export? I know that there is a deadline. It's not quite a year. I remember learning that. I was like, oh, we have a year to submit this, but it's more like 9 months, I think, because you get told that your Coral will know the exact dates because she'll tell you.
Yeah. So, for example, for Angie right now, the awards happen in mid-November. I believe the ceremony was November 18th. And we usually have the deadline for the final project be early September. So about 10 months, 9-10 months.
Yeah. Any final, I mean, I feel like we've answered all of our questions, basically like broad strokes of the process from putting your application in to then putting your film out in the world. Does anyone have any additional questions? Anyone joining us? And if not, then I will just see if everyone has a final closing bit of advice that you want to give, or just some motivation, or some inspiration to have for everyone who's watching, to put your projects out there. Get ready to pitch. Let's submit all your hard work and your stories, because it's just the process of it alone is. I'll start, actually. I'll just say this. The hardest thing I think as a writer and like as a creative person is being accountable to myself. I find that very hard because there's no deadline. You just have to be a self-starter. And I find that creativity sometimes works well when you have a little bit of a box or a parameter or a challenge or something. It's almost like it creates, for me, it creates some sort of like energy or a flow. And so just applying for this, I applied twice. The first year I didn't get into the finalist round. And then the second year I got into the finalist round and won, but it was the application process the first time that taught me a lot about what I would do for the application process the second time around. And that was knowing my story a lot better, getting better with my mood board and exactly how I wanted to shoot it, exactly, all that kind of stuff. So and also this short film, whether I was going to get the Greenlight award or not, I was going to make it. So everything was prepped and ready to go, whether I got the award or not. And so it was a great sort of motivator. I guess that is my one takeaway. So yeah, anyone else want to add a final takeaway as we close up?
I'll just add that I think the great thing about short films is that you can really experiment and just do something that you haven't tried before. Just really push yourself to just do something that maybe you couldn't do on like a feature film or things like that. So I think that's what I really enjoyed about the process of making short films, is that I'm always just trying something new. And that was the great thing about making Naha Itku, because I really feel like I pushed myself as a filmmaker just to do something that kind of scared me, and something that was a bit beyond what I felt like I could do at the time. So I'd encourage people to do that with their projects, and also just really focusing on, when you're pitching a project, to really emphasize why you're passionate about a project, why you're the right person to be telling that story, and just really leaning on that, because I think that's what people ultimately want to know and want to hear about, especially the judges. Like, they want to know why this is a story that you want to tell right now. So I would just encourage people, when you do apply and when you get into the pitching phase, just to really lean on that with when you're talking about your stories.
Yeah, I would just echo what Age is saying. I feel like my experience in the pitch, for sure, we were so shocked to even get in the finals. And then there, I think what really helped us, and especially my producer, was really pushing. And when we did the pitch thing too, with the pitch practice, our pitch coach was really adamant on saying that, like, speak from your heart, really know how deep your story comes from and where it comes from, and sticking to that more so than knowing every single perfect point of your plot. It's just knowing exactly to the core of you where that story comes from and why you need to tell it right now. Would be and have fun in the process too.
Awesome. Mike, anything you want to add? That was great, Angie.
I mean, I would kind of echo the same thing as, like, I think use this medium as a way to explore things you haven't done before. And I think of that too as a producer, as like, as difficult as some of these challenges were, it was like, this was a great opportunity to kind of try it, make mistakes, figure out how I might do it differently. Because you might not have that same opportunity on a much bigger project with a lot of other money and things like that on the line. Like, this was, that's why when Asia pitched this fantastical story, as difficult as I think we both knew it was going to be, it's like, what, let's go for it. Let's try it. Let's see how big we can go, and try to make it all happen. So I think just, like, don't be afraid to try something new, or don't be afraid to do something you haven't, or don't be like kind of what Asia was saying, like, don't be afraid to scare yourself a little bit, or step out of the comfort zone. Like, this is kind of the perfect program for that sort of thing.
That was great. Snova. Thank you, Mike.
I think pretty much everyone, echoing the same thing. If you're kind of on the fence about applying, just apply. Like, go through the guidelines, hit it where, it says what you need to do, because it's really good practice. Like, or even for me as a producer, like, it's really interesting for me to, like, put it all together. And like you say, it's done for future projects. And I would say, like, a lot of it, I had the skeleton of everything before Lucy even came to me from our previous projects and everything. So it was great to have it all at my, fingertips. So you may as well apply. And again, you never quite know where it's gonna go. Like, the people we ended up working with, like, everyone was so cool. Like, I didn't know, like, 80% of the people who came on board to help, and the 20% I did, like, I hadn't seen them for a few years, and it was so fun just to get out there, shoot the film, and be in correspondence with them. Again, like, texting every single day is just so, nice. It's really rewarding, like that, to figure things out. And I think that's the main thing. It's really fun to do it. It's not. I mean, it's a job, but it's not a job when you're getting to, make the rules and do it yourself. So yeah, just don't be scared to apply. And as Lucy said, like, even if it doesn't quite go this time around, it might next. And you really don't know what the judges, what resonates with them. Because I think the previous year there had been a couple of female filmmakers win, and I think it was like comedy drama, one of them. So I was like, oh, I'm sure that's not the genre they're going to go for this time. So I was just thrilled when we won. And I think Lucy's pitch really you stood its own, and that's how we ended up getting it. So
I will add one thing. There's two more questions that came up, just because for established directors. I didn't add this. A lot of times people apply because they want to sort of use this as a genre calling card in a way. Like, they want to start doing Hallmark rom-coms. I think it was Milo last year that did, like, more. He wanted more of like a Hallmarky looking rom-com, because that's more of the direction that he was kind of going into. I don't want to speak for him fully, but that's just an example of, if you're an established director and you want to sort of switch genres, or have I wanted to have something that was more indie had more of an indie vibe, and it had a darker sense of humor. And I'd been doing a lot of rom-coms at the time, so that was sort of one of the main reasons, and just because of the story. But just if anybody on here is, I know we've been talking a lot about emerging filmmakers, but if you're an established filmmaker, I know that that's a big reason why a lot of people were applying. And if that applies to you, then that's cool. That could be a cool thing for you to do. And Andy says one more question. Oh, did anyone have any mentors? And then what was your relationship with them? Nobody had mentors. Okay. I asked a couple friends, director friends that I respect their work and I love their input, to watch the cut after we kind of reworked our beginning of the movie, for some input, and that was really, really helpful. And one of the things that he said was, what kind of feedback do you want? Do you want critical feedback? Do you need inspiration, or do you need a pep talk? Like, it was, so it was something that I was like, oh, I'm going to do that from now on. When somebody asks for notes on their project, what kind of feedback are you looking for? But it was very helpful to have a fresh pair of eyes, like Sonova said, even on your pitch or just with your cut, somebody that doesn't know your story at all, and see if it's coming across in the way that you want it to.
They do in the emerging, they sort of suggest it.
Okay.
For sure, either producer or director mentor. But I think between my experience and Krista's experience, we knew that we were just gonna, same as you, Lucy, like, figure out our friends. We have a lot of friends and connections in the industry already, so I feel like just utilizing that. But if you don't have the same, if you haven't say not as long in the tooth as we are, I think it's a good idea. I think it's a really good idea. And to work with the DGCVC folks to maybe solidify some mentors, I think it can only help.
Great. Asia, anything did you want to add to that, or?
I don't know if there's much I can add to that. I didn't have a mentor through the process of making this film, but there are certainly a lot of people who watched a cut and gave feedback on it, and just kind of general support throughout making the film. Just going back to all our partners who came on board and just helped us out with in-kind services and emotional support and all sorts of things. Like, I think that all kind of goes hand in hand with just like the overall community support we did receive for the film. But I didn't necessarily have like a direct mentor who I could kind of bounce ideas off of throughout the process. And I think it's largely because it happened so quickly. Just like even going back to like the process of 9 to 10 months, like once you do receive the awards, just go make the film. Like, it just really like happened so quickly. I just don't think I could have even gone back and really taken the time with like sit with the script and just kind of really workshop it a bit more. So it would have been nice to, but yeah, I think just kind of even like reaching out to folks. Like, remember, Lucy, you and I kind of had a discussion before you went in with your Greenlight project. Like, I think reach out to people who have gone through the process is always really helpful. And just kind of finding people within the film community as well, like Angie said, just to kind of watch a cut of the film or just maybe give input into the script is always really helpful.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for being a part of this panel. Mike, Asia, Angie, Sonova, who also produced, and Coral, thanks for having me. I hope that was helpful for everyone. Yeah, I was such a great experience being part of such a great film community. So yeah, I think that's the end.
Just before we wrapped up, I just want to point out that in the chat right now, you can find the Vimeo links and the streaming links for Asia's film, Lucy's film, as well as Milo's film. So feel free to take a look if you'd like to see what the end result of a Greenlight project looks like. You can also find the Greenlight guidelines for this year. And finally, the applications for Greenlight open tonight at midnight, and they will be open till September 19th. So plenty of time, I say as someone that is not applying, to prepare that application if you like to get it in. So yeah, if you have any other questions, please feel free to connect with the office. Again, as the winners have said themselves, feel free to connect with other folks that have gone through this experience. It's all about community and these sort of projects. But yeah, again, thank you so much to all of you for joining us today for this chat. Much appreciate your time and your input. And I hope everybody has a lovely rest of their day.
Thank you.